is that in the official press release by the Jets, this is how it's worded. Compiled by the team's communication staff, the offensive and defensive units are represented with blah, 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 blah. So this was compiled by the team's communication staff, first of all, right? I'm sure there was some input from the coaches and they kind of wrote it on the back of a napkin real quick, but there is no reason to panic or overreact about any of this. Now that I've said that, we're going to panic and overreact for the next 10 minutes. But a couple things jumped out to me right off the bat. First of all, Gibson is the starting slot. Which I don't think is a massive surprise. I don't think they would give it to Corley right out of the gate. There have been those kind of things that we hear about Jets rookies every year, which is that, they have a lot of studying to do, blah, blah, blah. They always tend to knock them down a little bit. So that didn't surprise me too much. Lazard as the starting wide receiver too, a little surprising. Not so much when you factor in Mike Williams pretty much not practicing yet and, may or may not see him week one. And with everything that we've said about Lazard, I think that there's a keen awareness that the team is trying to help Lazard rehab his image a little bit because it got ugly between him and the fans last year. It appeared like he quit, even though most of the time he was saying the right thing. He did throw the offensive staff under the bus in one post-game interview, but on the eye test, it looked like he quit a little bit. Aaron Rodgers has been putting stories on Instagram of Lazard making catches. So it seems like there's a concerted effort by the team to pump his stock a little bit, whether that's for a trade or whether that's just help him rehab his image a little bit and get him on proper footing with the fans. We don't know.
I would be extremely shocked if he were traded, just given the relationship with Rodgers and the contract, frankly. Like it seems like we would be needing to add something if we were to ship him off, and I don't think it'll reach that point.
Agreed. I don't think another team would want to take that money. The only reason I'm even suggesting it is because the feeling like constant stream of positive Lazard information that's coming, it just smells a little weird. That's all. And it's probably nothing, and it's probably just a PR thing, but it just smells a little weird. Jason Brownlee was third on the depth chart behind guys like Malik Taylor, Corley, and Irv Charles was the one that stuck out to me the most. Brownlee being behind Irv Charles in that the wideout spot where Mike Williams would be the starter and Lazard is the starter. So if you jump Mike Williams up, that puts Brownlee down to fourth on that spot, which just, again, was just an interesting observation. I don't necessarily think it means that much. It's just that, we're all kind of hoping good things for Jason Brownlee. So it was a little bit weird to see him that low. It's not like he's a rookie that they're trying to knock the ego down or anything. So that one was a little weird. Is he being fourth?
I think Connor tweeted a little bit about Brownlee too. I'll be interested to see how much they play him in the preseason games, because we are going to need to find a guy at some point who can be like a number 2 on this roster once Mike Williams is done being a Jet. And so I think, like, especially these preseason games where we have guys injured and we're not trying to get, this will be a lot for those previously undrafted free agents, lower end of the roster guys to really prove themselves. So this is an interesting indication, and I'm curious to see how much playing time he gets and how that lines up with where this depth chart views him.
Yeah, agreed. And I think it's what Connor's point was on Twitter was that, like, it's time to find out, right? Yeah. So, like, use the preseason, find out. Is he being fourth? Not a surprise, just kind of the first time we've seen it in paper, right? I think everybody knew that it was headed in that direction, and here it is. He is fourth, so he's going to be fighting for a roster spot. Clemens listed as the first team edge, with Hassan Reddick still holding out. Obviously, Hassan Reddick is fourth on the depth chart because of the holdout. There is no other reason for that. But I think it was surprising to see Clemens in that spot as opposed to maybe Will McDonald or maybe Tack McKinley. It was just and the noise started to leak out a little bit the last few days among our group chat of, Will being around practice and all these things and talking about how much the coaches really love Clemens. And so when I saw it, it didn't surprise me that much. It was more just a confirmation of what Will was saying, was that the team looks a lot more favorably on him than maybe the fans do. And so it looks like, the guy that we've all been circling as a potential cut candidate might not be as close as we all thought he was. all the undrafted defensive linemen, the Watts, McGregor, and Leonard Taylor are all way down at the bottom, which is no surprise. That's what the Jets do. They put the undrafted rookie guys, and even if you were drafted, they really don't give those starting slots out to any rookies. I think when I saw it all on paper, it struck me how thin they are at linebacker. Like when your second line is, Zaire Barnes, Chaz Surratt, and Sam McGovern, I was like, oh, geez, like if anybody goes down, they're in a little bit of a tough spot there. I'm not necessarily sure there's anything you can do about that at this point. And also, we talked on Buck the Trend on Friday about how Ulbrich is really, really good at coaching up linebackers. So there's a possibility that those guys are, they're just in such good hands with Ulbrich that we're not in as much danger as it might appear on paper if somebody does go down on that front line. But that was a little like jarring.
Salah's always been like a mid-round linebacker guy too. That was one of the big things when obviously Fred Warner is Fred Warner, and we got very lucky with getting Quincy off the scrap heap. But coming into hiring Salah, his defensive staff, Ulbrich too, obviously, but they got a lot of credit for being able to do a lot with a little at linebacker. So hopefully that's the plan there. And I'll always, whenever I hear Chaz Surratt, I just think of the Hard Knocks clip where Salah was just so hyped up. I think it was on like a special teams play of just Chaz Surratt, and someone clipped it and tweeted out like, "Yeah, he's making the team." And then, sure enough, obviously he did. But I think that it seems like a staff that is willing to take a risk at linebacker. One of the things that jumped out to me, especially with Clemens being listed so high, is I feel like we took last year's D-line depth a bit for granted. And this year last year we were like, Huff will step up with more playing time. That was a bit more of a proven thing. Obviously we had JFM still, and we knew what he could do as a interior and movable piece along the line. We're sort of replacing those guys and hoping that Will McDonald takes a leap, and obviously Javon Kinlaw finds like his best form with us. And obviously, again, we've said this is written by the communications team. It doesn't mean anything, but coupling Clemens being listed as first team with the reports we're getting out of camp from Will and people like that, it kind of makes me a little nervous about the whole Will McDonald's going to take a leap, and obviously we're waiting on Reddick to still figure that whole situation out, but using Reddick as a plug and play, this whole situation has made me feel a little bit more like the D-line feels a little bit like a house of cards and less sturdy than last year. That's one of the main takeaways I came away with this, was just we're not as deep as I think we should be to have the best defensive line in the NFL again.
Yeah, well, your deadline for Reddick is approaching, by the way. You said first preseason game. We have until Saturday here. Kinlaw was listed as the starter next to Quinnen Williams, which minorly surprising. I think, I don't think anybody really thought Saul Thomas was going to be there, other than just that he's been on the team. So maybe you give him that nod in the preliminary depth chart. But it seems like with McDonald, Tack McKinley, and Javon Kinlaw, they are three dart throws, right? Of like, we're taking super athletic guys picked in the first round who carry risk. And the first two carry risk because they flamed out with their original teams. Like Tack McKinley, I think, was taken like 28th overall or something. And he had a couple good years under Ulbrich, and then he like really started to vanish. And then he bounced around to like every team in the NFL on waivers for a while, was out of the league last year. And now he's back with the Jets now. Javon Kinlaw, mostly disappointing in San Francisco, first round pick. Will McDonald, first round pick with the Jets, and didn't really play much, right? So you have three first round guys who are crazy athletic. And I think if one of those three darts can hit, you're okay. If two of the three can hit, you're in pretty good shape. And if all three hit, you're looking at like some pretty good scary depth, right? So there's very much appears to be a strategy of athleticism on the defensive line. And it's just a matter of, can you convert those dart throws into real NFL players or not? And so it is risky. I share that with you. I'm worried, but we'll see. As far as the third level, Jalen Key is the third safety. I don't think anybody's really surprised by that. People were pretty underwhelmed by the Mr. Irrelevant pick there. And I'm going to take this opportunity to highlight Brandon Codrington being the backup nickel. I told you, there's a reason he's on this roster. He's backing up Michael Carter as the second nickel. And so I think I was a little off. I was thinking it was returnability, but maybe there was something else, that maybe they saw a parallel between him and Carter in college at Duke, that they thought, hey, this guy could really be a good nickel. So Stiggers is listed behind Sauce on the outside, and some of the other corners are like Eccles is behind Reed, and then Codrington is the second line for the nickel, which I think is really interesting. So I said earlier, the Jets always put the rookies, especially the undrafted rookies, like way down on the first depth chart. Brandon Codrington is one spot away from the starting lineup. And I don't think it can be overstated how weird that is, right? Again, overreaction. It's an initial depth chart. It doesn't really matter. But why is an undrafted rookie on the second line who we've heard almost nothing about? So that one really stuck out to me. And then the last one, remember when they took both running backs in the draft and everybody initially was like, oh, that's weird. We have Izzy. Braylon Allen makes sense as an RB2 behind Breece Hall. And then the real head scratcher was Isaiah Davis. Everybody was wondering what Isaiah Davis was all about. And I think a lot of people's initial reaction was maybe this is a special teams pick. And then that was pretty much immediately met with, hey, Isaiah Davis has never played special teams. That's not what he does in college. Why would that be a special teams pick? But here he is listed as the second kick returner and the second punt returner. So maybe, again, with the new rules, maybe there was something in mind there. Maybe that was a Brant Boyer pick, but Isaiah Davis is officially right now, or unofficially, I guess, is the second kick returner and the second punt returner. Corley is third, and Codrington is fourth. So Codrington popping up again in a second place.
We're going to have to carve out like a 5-minute victory lap segment when Codrington makes the team for you to just go off, because you've been hyping this guy on this podcast for weeks now, and he's shown out. He's doing you well. So remember, TOJ or TOG listeners, you heard it here first from Paul.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I think, as far as unofficial depth chart goes, we hit on all the major surprises, the main sticking points, things that stuck out. I do think, the Jets drafting a guy because he could fit into the new world of special teams prior to that becoming a rule or that being instituted in practice is a great sign. If that's how they're thinking as an organization, that's what you want. You want teams that are going to be forward thinking, addressing problems in the draft before it becomes an issue on the field in August. So I'm excited to see what they roll out. Obviously, we're not going to, that's the other thing, is like, we're not going to know how they truly plan to use these guys on special teams until the season starts. Like, until week 1, it's all going to be just milk toast, go out there, run the ball towards the tackles. I think I even saw someone like gain 6 yards and fall down in the Texans-Bears game because they were like, we don't want to put shit on film. So it'll be really interesting to watch as week 1 develops.
And with Gibson hurt, it's going to be interesting. Like, who takes the kicks on Saturday? Like, if it's not going to be Gibson and you don't want to show your plan with Isaiah Davis, who are you putting back there? Like, you probably don't want to show anything with Corley either, right? So is it Codrington? Like, who is taking the kicks on Saturday? I'm curious to see.
You will have that highlight reel on your Twitter, no doubt. Awesome. Well, Paul, any final thoughts before we wrap and head into preseason week 1?
No, I'm unnaturally and stupidly excited to watch a nothing burger on Saturday at noon. We're going to learn nothing. We're going to see nothing. And I can't wait.
New jerseys, though. We'll see some nice jerseys. It'll be nice rooting for some actually good-looking laundry this weekend. But we will be back next week after preseason week 1 to recap some of the stuff we do see on the field and talk more about Jets training camp. We will talk to you guys again next week. Peace.